welcome to Know My Life and Know My Business. It's wonderful
Thank
to
you.
be here this afternoon
Thanks
with
for
you.
coming. Thank you.
I'm very excited to hear a little bit more about the Sandhurst business, Sandhurst Fine Foods.
Yep.
So why don't we start right at the beginning and you can fill me in on how this great company began.
Well, probably the business origins is with Dad starting with Sandhurst Farms in the 60s as a what would be a grower and a packer of pickles. So that was originally started by an Englishman and a Polish guy. It sounds like a bit of a joke, but it's actually true.
It does sound like a bit of a
an Englishman
joke.
and a Polishman decided to create a pickle factory. And once you understand English culture and Polish culture, you realise they probably didn't get on that well. So Dad was fortunate to buy Sandhurst Farms with his brother-in-law in the mid-60s, and that was a business which they took over, and they made a go of it. They actually made a good success of it. At the time, they were probably the biggest product then was red cabbage salad, which is bizarre because that's right back in trend now.
Really?
So fast forward 50 years, and red cabbage salad is a
Back
product
on
we've just relaunched red cabbage salad.
And where was this farm?
It was in Macquarie Fields. So it was in Macquarie Fields. It's a big long farm in Macquarie Fields. It's still, the location's still there. It's on Wills Road, but it's now been turning into housing. And so for 10 years they wrestled with the pickles, and so they introduced things like exotic things like olives.
Ooh.
So yeah, nobody had ever heard of olives, and things like sauerkraut. So we used to make our own sauerkraut back then. Once again, it was really trendy there, and then it just disappeared for 50 years, and now sauerkraut's one of our better selling products. So it's bizarre. The world's turning full circle. We didn't know anything about probiotics. We didn't know anything about fermented foods then. They just did sauerkraut and red cabbage and dabbled in olives, and the olives used to come in big metal drums imported from Spain, and so then they would just repack them down and put them into jars and do a lot of, they used to do dill pickles, and they used to do really big bulk ones. I remember getting tubs of gherkins fresh from the farm, and some of the farms were quite local too, almost like across the road we could buy gherkins because it was farming area in that area, so we could buy that, and then they would then pierce them with a fork or something, and then they would put them into a brine, and then they would cure the product in a brine. So those curing systems we learnt when we were kids. So Ray and I were hanging around the olive factory, the smelly place there where they did all these pickles and preserves, and I mean things like sauerkraut. It just smells awful when it's being produced, and then when it gets fermented, it's fine, you know. So the probiotics start to cut in. So then,
so let me put some names to these people you're talking about.
Okay,
so Dad is Vince.
Vince Lubrano is my father.
And
yeah.
Mum was involved as well.
Mum was involved, yeah. She used to come in and help. And school holidays, most kids my age would love school holidays. I used to dread school holidays because you'd have to go to the factory, right? And Saturdays, every other kid was at sport and we were at the factory, you know. So I used to work out ways of how to avoid work. So I'd find ways of hiding and not even being there. Ray was the worker, which still is. So I'd try and avoid work, and Ray'd try and find all the work. So, and that's pretty much.
You're very different then.
Yeah, well,
that's
the way we've created the business.
So Mum is Geraldine, Dad is
Vince, and my brother is Ray, and myself. Yeah.
And your mum and dad are still actively involved in the business today.
Yes,
so really, truly a second generation business.
Yeah, it's actually I call it a 1.5 generation business because the foundation was laid back in the 60s. Dad actually sold that business in 75. So that period of absence from 75 to say 90 was critical in the development of Sandhurst Fine Foods, because had we continued, we wouldn't be on the same trajectory as we are now.
So what prompted the change? Tell me what caused the Sandhurst Farms to be sold?
Well, Sandhurst Farms was sold because they had to relocate the premises because of local council pressures. And at that stage, it had outgrown its management structure in terms of my father and his brother-in-law. So Dad's got a saying, one ship, one captain, and sort of outgrew that sort of management style. They still remain very good friends on speaking terms, but they probably realised that for them to develop in their own right, they had to run their own businesses. So, the businesses were evolving, and so my uncle Pasquale, which is Mum's brother, then formed another business, and he's a food distributor, a very successful food distributor. So he did a thing in his own right, and then Dad went off and bought all these other businesses. So he got involved in property. We actually even had a business where we were doing cash and carry wholesale foods to the public, to the corner stores in Marrickville, and that was a massive learning curve as well. Dad's last business before this one was battering and crumbing of seafood, which was really interesting because he thought that seafood was it for him. He thought he'd landed in his nirvana. So doing battering and crumbing of seafood, because he's a fish guy, You know?
We just heard a story about Dad cooking fish.
Yeah,
so-
cooks fish every day, you know, and he gets boiled fish and puts it in water and, you know, has onions and garlic with it, and he thinks that's the greatest food.
And he's probably the healthiest man you know.
He's got amazing statistics in his blood pressure, all that sort of stuff. He's just in amazing shape. He eats too much bread, so he's got a bit of a gut. If you cut his carbs out in terms, you'd have the perfect diet. Fresh vegetables, fresh fish, no meat, basically no rubbish food. He's just very, very clean eating.
So he went about setting up and starting and then selling a few businesses, all in food. You said before
in
to
food,
me.
he did a few in
when
food.
He did food well.
He did food well. When he did non-food, he generally
so
lost
well.
money. He was out of his league. And then we saw that, my brother and I saw that this man had an entrepreneurial skill, still has that entrepreneurial skill. He's got a good knack for seeing things. He's the ideas man, to coin a phrase. So he's definitely the ideas man, but he would then not have the patience to go through with the system. So when he was buying and selling businesses, then he wouldn't have the patience to. He would build them and then sell them. So we said, why don't you just do something which you can stick to? Because I think if you stick to something, it would be really good. So we said, so my brother was always with him. My brother was at uni doing law and commerce. And so when he finished, he was sort of looking for a job, and then I joined after that, because I was working at Phillips Components as an assistant product marketing manager.
So you've got a marketing background yourself.
Yeah. I always wanted, because I grew up in these sort of food businesses, I always wanted a job with a food company. I always wanted to be in the food company, because growing up in food business, I thought food's a great business. And even when I was working at Phillips and sort of looking at computers, I'd say to my father, look, I reckon the business of the future, this is probably what, 90s, late 80s, I said, look, it's computers, everything's computers now. And I said, listen, if you're not into computers, then you just haven't got any relevance whatsoever. And he said to me one thing, he says, have you ever tried to eat a computer? Right? I said, what do you mean? He says, everyone's got to eat.
That's true.
I said, well, they've still got to eat. There's still a market for food.
That's right.
And he said, the other thing, he says, you can't have fish and chips every day. You know, I'm sort of going, well, I didn't realise what that meant, but, you know, there's a lot of these phrases that sort of come through all the time.
Do you find yourself saying them now yourself?
I collect ethnic phrases, which was the education system of the we're only one generation away from subsistence farming, from poverty, right? So we're one generation back from farmers and fishermen, right? My grandfather was a fisherman, the other one was a farmer. So that one generation is actually much closer than we think it is, and their education system, because they could not read or write. So the only way they could actually teach the rules of life was to have proverbs, and I think they're the great lessons of life.
You'll have to put a book together one day.
Yeah, I'm actually starting to categorise them and starting to realise that, you know, there's great phrases from every culture. You know, things like, you know, the fish stinks from the head, you know.
Yes.
Which is a great one.
I'd say the fish rots from the head down, but
well,
I know
right.
what you mean.
Fish, when that's a Japanese saying. And the long sickness ends in death. That's a great one. I love that one. So where the reason that's
doesn't everything end in death?
Well, the long sickness
ultimately.
ends in the long sickness. What's that supposed to mean is that you've got someone that can't pay their bills on time,
okay.
And so eventually they're going to go. So they either recover or they die. But the long sickness is, the longer it goes, the more chances they are of falling over. You know.
I understand.
So a mate of mine, F Mayer Imports, Robbie Mayer, he said that's an old Hungarian saying. I said, well, it's also. I said it was also an Italian. So I don't know. It was one day back in the
there was a Hungarian and Italian.
Well, I
just
reckon,
like the Englishman and the Polishman.
All these, yeah, exactly. I think all these people were together, you know, and these phrases and proverbs came because the good ones lasted, and the bad ones didn't make it.
And so they probably were together, sitting around a table. And I know you've got a beautiful catalogue here, and it says "Welcome to our table."
The table.
So the tradition of eating is very important to you and your family.
Yeah, well, it's the focal point. It's where the uniting of the family takes place. You know, once again, Italian culture, as well as a lot of cultures around the world which are very family based, the Chinese, the Indian, a lot of where they've got strong family roots, have always got this table as the focus. So everything is done at the table. And it's almost like you've got to break bread before you can actually have a discussion. And you know, there's that. My father has that famous saying: "We're not discussing anything until we finish eating." You know, and so once we finish eating,
there's another one for your book.
Yeah, well, that's right. And then at the end of the meal, he goes, "Now we can have a discussion." You know,
right.
So it's civilized now. But you know, and I say to people, like, they ask me questions before I go to lunch. I say, "Listen, don't ask me a question before I go to lunch." You know,
My food food is important.
Because the food's what's on my mind at the moment. I need to eat, and then I can probably think. And then if it's my father, he needs to eat, needs to sleep, and then he can talk.
Yeah. So you were saying before, you have a table,
Yep.
a family lunch
family
table
lunchroom,
down in
which is in our new building, and it's away from everything, so we can have interesting discussions together. And nobody will hear us. And then my father in the other section's got his own little bed area where he can go for his siesta.
So he has a siesta?
Yeah, which is once again generational.
Very European.
Because his father was a fisherman, and that fishing life revolved around getting up early, going fishing, and then having lunch, and then going to sleep, and then in the afternoon doing more activities. And that's the Mediterranean lifestyle. Very similar in Spain. Most of Europe used to do that before they tried to become like us in the Western scheme. So yeah, and I reckon probably I'm probably about 10 years away from the afternoon siesta. But on weekends I don't mind a siesta at all. It's great. So yeah, they call it nana naps.
It runs in your blood too.
Well, you can't. I've always said you can't run away from who you are. So your generation tells you who you are. So you just look at and it applies to what you eat as well. You know, we as a second generation as an Italian, I gravitate towards Italian food because that's what my ancestors ate.
So let's talk about the food. So tell me if I asked you what does Sandhurst Fine Foods do? Tell me how would you answer that question?
We're Italian-inspired foods, but we're not only Italian anymore. So we started with Italian-inspired foods. Now there's nothing Italian about a Kalamata olive. It's just that the Greeks grow better olives than Italians. So things like sun-dried tomatoes clearly are Italian. Artichokes are probably more Spanish than Italian, but they feature as part of the Italian table. So our motto is a passion for food, a passion for family. So any food which has got a very strong, usually European background, we will generally try and make that our own food and make that a part of the Sandhurst family. So that's what we are. We're solutions for mainly for food service, but also in retail.
So who are your clients? Tell me about
our clients in retail. It's pretty easy to work out that we supply Woolworths, Coles, Costco, Aldi, and all the retailers. But the bigger part of the business is food service. So every cafe, restaurant, club, caterer, football stadium would have some Sandhurst products in them. It might be balsamic vinegar, it might be some olive oil, it might be jalapenos in jars, it might be some Mexican product, which we supply them as well. So and even things like sauerkraut, which are very sort of Polish and German, we find that they're being demanded by our market. So we will go where the trends are, but applying that Italian passion to that particular product, which makes us probably very Australian in that respect, because we can basically change with the market. As the market moves, we change with the market, because the market for sun-dried tomatoes is very flat, and there's only so many sun-dried tomatoes you can eat, before you get sick of sun-dried tomatoes.
So how would you describe the culture of the business today? So family's obviously important.
Yeah, the culture is very much a family culture. So we've gone beyond the family-run control. We've got experts in our field. I believe that one thing I wanted to do was invest in youth. So trying to employ and trying to allow young people to develop through the business. Because when I started, I was 27, 28. So I was young enough, and my father allowed me to do what I had to do and make my own mistakes. So I think I should be able to give that back to the generation. Not necessarily, my daughter's 19, another one's 17, my nephew's 19, and my niece is 17. So they are still at least 5 to 10 years away from joining the business, so we need the next injection of youth to come through. So very fortunate that I've got some really good marketing brains working for me, and they're working mums, they're busy mums, and they've given us some amazing insight into what can be done, but allowing young people to run with it. I call it the fountain of youth, and you realise that as you get older, you need to hand the reins over. But because my father allowed me to do that, and allowed my brother to do that as well, so he, unlike most older family businesses where the father says this is what we've done and you can't touch it, he was very much, yes, you can do.
Take it where you'd like.
You can take it where you'd like, and fortunate that my brother allows me to do what I do in the product development and the sales and marketing space, and I also allow him to run his own show in both warehouse and manufacturing. So that's the culture, and so he has his team and I have my team, and we get together once a month. to basically, bring the finance team, the production team, the marketing team, the logistics team, the purchasing team together, and to basically go through the next level. And family business coaches, that's where they come into play, because they're like the glue. So all they do is facilitate. They just take the strategy, develop the strategy, and then they make everybody accountable to that strategy, which is good. So
what does how much time are you spending at work versus outside? I know you've got some extra curricular activities, which
I'm just like everybody else. I just come here because it's what you want to do. It's I mean, my father says, "What would I do at home?" And I'd be exactly the same.
So how old's Dad now?
He's 85.
And he's still here every day?
Every day comes in.
And Mum's here every day too?
Yeah, Dad gets in he gets in probably early, about 7, and Mum gets in probably about 11, so everything sort of converges around that midday, 12:30 family get together, so the 4 of us will get together in one room.
That's beautiful.
Generally 3 or 4 times a week. Today, obviously, I was out, so you'll generally get them together into one area.
Very special.
Yeah, it is a special time, exactly. Yeah. And you know that it's a moment of time that one day won't be there.
Yes.
And that's a very important thing to be aware of,
And what about your own family? So you have a wife and
I have a wife and
two
two
daughters?
Yep, and they're both, one's still at PLC at Croydon, so she's finishing up next year, and the other one's doing business law at UTS, and my wife's an accountant, but she's got her own private sort of business doing her accounting, bookkeeping from home, so she works from home. And same with my sister-in-law, she does her own thing as well.
Very strong work ethic in your family.
Everybody works. That's the thing. Everyone's got to work, and there's no rest for anybody. So we're all go. So we're fortunate that the wives are very understanding as well. And I mean, having a business like this, my brother and I'm overseas or interstate a lot of the times, and Ray's here pretty much from morning till night.
But it's not all about work for you, is it?
No, I've got
music running in your blood as well.
I was in a band before I sort of joined Sandhurst. So in fact, Sandhurst is the band was the reason I joined Sandhurst, because we were starting when I was working at Phillips, and we used to rehearse in one of Dad's old factories, and so it was on Saturday. We used to make a lot of noise, and I probably loved to hear him complain. He used to complain about all the noise. I'm trying to work here. You guys are making noise, but we'd have a rehearsal, and sometimes after the rehearsals, I would say to him, "What is it about this business?" And he would say to me, "Listen, there's a lot of potential here for this." And I said, "Well, who's going to buy olives?" And he said, "You'll be surprised who'll buy olives."
Wow.
That was in probably 1990.
There's a quote for your book: "Who's going to buy olives?"
Who's going to buy olives?
Said the man who runs Sandhurst Fine Foods.
I've got a lot of quotes that actually. I mean, when MasterChef
There's
approached
irony.
me, when MasterChef approached me, they said, "We're going to do this show called MasterChef," and I said, "It'll never work."
Oh no!
It'll never work because we'd sponsored Ready Steady Cook,
right?
And I thought it was going to be another Ready Steady Cook. And I saw the UK MasterChef, and I thought, I was right about MasterChef. In the first probably 4 to 5 weeks, it was dying, and then something just happened. It clicked, and everyone just went bang. And so we're now sponsoring for the 9th season in a row on MasterChef.
Fantastic.
So we back in the old days, they used to have the jars like this. Now they have the jars like this. So because we're just suppliers. We're not, because if they want us to sponsor them, we've got to
more money.
Throw them. Well, it's not more money. We just supply them product, which is great. Right. So we're able to get away with that, which is great.
Very
good. They like the product, which is nice. It's nice when you're known for not liking your product rather than how much you're going to pay me.
Yes.
So
And so still playing in the band.
Yeah. We knock around clubs and pubs on twice a month.
And what's it called?
Agent 69. So it's we do covers, Bon Jovi and Katy Perry and Pink.
And you play
I'm a bass player.
Bass player.
Do
you sing as well?
Yeah, I do a bit of singing, but at my age they keep you at the back, So they say, look, there's far more
You're
attractive.
an old rocker.
Yeah, so they we've got young females at the front that sing well and look good. And so that's really what you should be looking at is,
And your girls are singing as well?
My
Both
daughter
your
Gabby's
girls?
a singer, she's a great singer. She's
but not
fantastic.
with you in the band?
No, you wouldn't. That's well, actually the guitarist, his daughter sings in the band, so that's enough, There's another family business for you, But my younger daughter's in Germany at the moment. She's playing drums with the PLC school band. So she's pretty much
she's
the
got music
band.
she's
a good drummer.
She's
very musical, these kids. So they grew up around music, so it's obviously...
And Dad? Mum and Dad, music?
My parents?
Yes.
No, my uncle.
Your uncle?
So I had 2 uncles that were both musicians. One was a guitarist, used to play in the Italian reception lounges, and my other uncle Justin was a bass player who was the serious one. Still is a bass player, and he knocks around with all sorts of bands, and he's quite well known in the music industry. So
there you go.
Justin DeLeo is pretty much a household name in the professional musician circle. Very good musician, amazing musician.
Well,
so,
there you
yeah.
go.
Yeah, so music, food. It's very linked.
It's all
it's very
about
similar.
living, just living.
It is, you know, and
Live it
I
up.
figure there's only a couple of things you can get to do really well in life. So I might as well do food and music, and that's
Why
it.
not?
So I won't be into fishing or cars or anything like that.
Or
I'll just do-
TV by the sounds of it.
No,
you
no,
don't
forget-
know a good TV show when you see one. So
No,
stick
no,
to music and food.
Forget TV shows. I can't pick those. That's
Yeah.
for sure. I've got no time for TV.
And
there you
so,
go.
what's the future looking like for Sandhurst Fine Foods? Where's this
Well,
business
the
headed now?
exciting thing is we've now launched the new categories. We launched a quinoa product, a ready-to-eat quinoa, which is
That's
quinoa
these
and co.
ones?
Yep, which is the first time we've seen a ready-to-eat quinoa product.
Mm.
So quinoa, we did a lot of business with Peru. Peru's story is really interesting. We started buying from Peru because Peru became the default source of artichokes and asparagus because Spain was getting more and more difficult. So then what they did was they started cultivating artichokes in Peru. And the factory in Peru that we deal with is run by an Italian, second-generation Italian like me called Miguel Nicolini. And Nicolini started doing the artichokes and the peppers and things like that and doing the Italian thing. And then he thought, well, he's Peruvian and I'm Australian, and so we need to basically find out what our heritage is, because yes, you're Italian, so he had that covered, but he didn't have anything Peruvian. So then he thought Peruvian is quinoa. Right. Quinoa is Peru.
So it's a fairly new food for
It's a
Australians
brand
to be
new
eating. A
food.
little bit like olives back in the day when
Correct.
you didn't think anyone would buy an olive.
Exactly. So who would buy quinoa? So quinoa became a Peruvian thing. So he then fused his Peruvian side with his Italian side and fused them together. Hence we did quinoa and co. The thing is also he employs 6,000 Peruvians. So he's got farms, he's got factories, he's got 2 factories. And what we're doing by putting more and more product into Peru, we're actually then allowing that whole generation. And those people there that are working there, their kids will have education for the first time.
Oh, that's so
it's a really
good.
nice story to have. Unfortunately for Peru, it's not known for the good agriculture. It's known for the bad agriculture. So we're trying to legitimise their agriculture as well.
That's
So
wonderful.
it's an amazing country, and it's got a really good history and culture, and it should be known as a really good producer. So we're buying a lot of stuff
So
from
the
Peru.
Sandhurst brand is on top,
Yep.
running alongside the quinoa and
Quinoa
co.
and co, and the co is the two elements,
Yeah.
the Mediterranean flavour, which is caponata, eggplant, artichoke, and then you mix that with the quinoa, and it's designed to replace a rice meal or a pasta meal, but it's half
Much
the carbs.
healthier.
Well, it's half the carbs, and it's all the flavour as well.
So now you're into health foods.
We just, it's got to taste good. It's got to taste good. So everything that walks through our door has to taste good. If it doesn't taste good, we just won't do it. I've got the best sort of palates of taste testers here, because our whole team has been with us for quite a while, and they're pretty ruthless about what they like. So they had about 15 flavour profiles for the quinoa and co, and we chose the one which best matched the Sandhurst taste profile. So they've got to taste good, and they've got to be a product which the average, even my mother gets to choose them as well, because she's like, this will taste good. So the artichoke one actually tastes like an artichoke dip that we do at home, which is artichoke with parmesan and mayonnaise, which we use as an artichoke dip.
Sounds delicious.
It's a beautiful dip. It's one of the
So
best
new
dips I've tried.
products, new categories.
Yep.
What
and
else
the
have you
fruit
got?
one,
What else have you got planned
we're
for
doing
Sandhurst?
the raw fermented raw slaw, red cabbage and sandwich stackers. This is all on the back of the fermented foods, natural foods, and the burger. So there's 2 things booming at the moment: burger and Mexican in food service. So everyone's going burger crazy. So we've got all the other stuff that goes with the burger: the relishes and the cucumbers and the sauerkraut and things like that. And then the Mexican side, we've got all the peppers, the chipotles, pardon me, and all those things. So we're riding on the back of the trends, because once again those trends then become mainstream, just like Thai food. Italian food's become mainstream. So you'll go to restaurants and Italian food is a component of a modern restaurant now. It's not, you can't even say that Italian restaurants are all Italian, because I don't know if you realise garlic bread is not Italian.
No, I did not know that.
No, garlic bread is not Italian. It's a French product, right?
Ah.
So you go to Italy and look for garlic bread. It's like fortune cookies. They're not Chinese. They weren't invented in China. So garlic bread is not Italian. It's a manifestation of a French product, And it's funny because you show garlic bread to an Italian, they go, "This is really interesting, but it's not Italian."
So look forward 5 years. Look forward 10 years. What do you see Sandhurst Fine Foods looking like, and what's your role in it?
Well, I prefer to sort of let the young ones take it to the next level. So I can see if Ray wants to let go, I think it'd be a good idea as well. So I think we can both let go a little bit, and yet we'll still be there. It's like my father is with us. and let the younger generation move it in another direction. We've moved in a lot of directions. I still think we have to maintain a relevance to our Mediterranean heritage.
You've got children, Ray's got children.
Yep.
What does the future look like for them? Do you think they'll join the business?
Well, at the moment they're aged at 19 and 17. They've got to go through their training and education. So the general rule, which we've learned from FBA, is that there's a minimum period of 5 to 10 years where they have to do their own thing.
And you did that?
I did that, yeah.
And that was valuable
That was very
for you.
valuable because I worked for an international company. So when I came to Sandhurst, I knew about exchange rates, for example. You know, I learned how to convert because Phillips taught me that. Working for big businesses also allows you the discipline, allows you to see system, structure and procedure. And the bigger the company, the better the training generally. So that generation, our children that are very, very bright, very well educated. All 4 of them are very, very good at what they do and are quite capable of doing a lot of things. I think it's important for them to find their own feet in their own way, to go and do their own thing, with no pressure from us to join a family business at all. I'm 52 at the moment, Ray's 55, so we've still got some good working years left in us.
Yes.
And provided we have our management team supporting us, which they do very well, then our children will probably allow themselves at least 5, preferably 10 years to get out there and to find their feet and to find out what they like doing.
Yes.
I mean, it took me 10 years in corporate to realise that I like marketing, and I would probably love to work for a food company. And probably the most important thing is when you start up, people say, well, you're not a household name, and so you then go, well, okay, how can I become a household name? But
well, you've certainly done that.
Thank
well
you very
done.
much. Thank you.
Yeah.